You mentioned Arch, man. When we spoke last, it was pre-Texas A&M game, and you, I thought, had a really interesting thought on this where, hey, Quinn is maybe not looking how we need him to look if we're Texas. We get to Atlanta and we play a Georgia. Like, it might be best to go with an Arch Manning at some point in time. I don't think that as this whole thing has progressed, that is by any stretch of the imagination, like, unreasonable. In fact, I would even go so far as to say Arch Manning, with how they call the offense, could be an upgrade in 2025. Do you feel that way, or where are you at on Arch Manning?
I'm very hesitant, I would say is the right word for me right now. You go back and watch Arch last year, while there's a lot of good stuff you saw from him, there was a lot of stuff where you're like, is he elite? Is Arch Manning an elite thrower of the football? Like elite. Like you put him out there in shorts, you're like, oh my God. You know, kind of like the Carson Beck Gunner thing we talked about at the beginning. Like, I wouldn't say elite. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. I think he's a good thrower of the football. I would not characterize any part of his game to date as elite. And I know there's a lot of people very bullish about, oh, he's going to be the first pick in the NFL draft next year. He's a top 10 quarterback. I'm like, what have you seen? Like, truly, like, sit me down and show me the tape and tell me right there that that looks like a number one pick in the NFL draft. Or are you just saying that because you want to grab headlines and you're just buying into the Manning hype name? And listen, I will never hope will or bad against any quarterback. And I know how difficult it is to play the position. Hell, it's 10 times more difficult to play in today's world with NIL and the pressures of that, plus being a Manning. Like, the world is going to be all eyes on him, especially that first matchup against Ohio State. I'm just saying, when you go back and watch the tape last year, one, the time he really played was against inferior opponents, which he's, you know, I could have gone out there and looked fast against the teams that he played against, for goodness sakes. I want to see it against Ohio State week one on the road before I really buy into the hype. Because like I said, based on the tape that I've seen, it's a good quarterback. And hell, Quinn played awful at times last year. So, like, is that an upgrade? Yeah, but does that mean that, like, that's a massive upgrade? Quinn got drafted in the 7th round. So an upgrade would be a quarterback that got drafted in the 6th round. So, like, that doesn't mean that you're elite because you're better than the guy that was a year ago that just got drafted in the 7th round. I think he has a chance to be better. I think the fact that he's athletic helps a ton because that was a major issue for Texas last year, Quinn's inability to run. But to sit here and say that, like, in his first season as a true starter, that Arch Manning's going to turn into the number one pick in the NFL draft, I'm not buying that right now. Until I see it.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL draft odds a year from now, when we haven't even seen him play full season as the starter. Caden Smith and I, our producer, we were just talking about this the other day. It's like Vegas is just dangling it in front of you and saying you weren't going to throw money on the NFL draft a year from now, but when you see the last name Manning and you see the odds and you think about Peyton and Eli, you're like, oh, maybe I'll just throw a couple dollars, donate something to the folks in Las Vegas and build some more skyscrapers. It's just like, that to me is so ridiculous. The thing that's interesting to me about him and how we talk about him is almost a throwback of sorts in his development. Like, we haven't seen a 5-star quarterback sit on the bench for more than a year. I mean, I couldn't name the last guy that truly waited his turn and then had several years, several springs under his belt before he got the starting job. So in that sense, I'm almost willing to be a little bit more critical of Arch Manning in the first month of the season if we don't see it. Not that I'm going to, think we define him in September by any stretch of the imagination, but like the fact that he's had some time in the system, had some time under Steve Sarkisian and all those things to get acclimated to college football. Like, I wonder how that's going to translate to him maybe having a quicker start to his career.
Well, he's definitely more developed. There's no doubt about that. Like, he understands the offense. They're going to be talented around him. I still, my biggest worry is still this. I would still consider a top 2, if not top 3 roster in America a year ago. Like, that Texas roster was loaded. There's no doubt about it. And Quinn at times was a liability. If you were such a superstar, and if Sark is as good of a coach as we all believe he is, why was he not playing? If you can look at your roster and say, this is a championship roster, and my quarterback is not playing at a championship level, and I got this 5-star that is supposed to be the number one pick in the NFL draft, why is Sark not playing him? Or why did Sark not play him? That it should be worrying to me. And once again, like I'm not saying that he's a bad quarterback. I just think like that's a red flag to me, and I need to see it before I believe it. I'll be cheering for him. Don't get me wrong. I love the Mannings. I have a great relationship with them. I think he's a great kid. I've known him for a long time, from back when I used to be a counselor at the camp. I hope he goes out there and proves me wrong and is the bona fide first pick in the NFL draft. Just show me what you got, buddy. Show me the money.
I think that's a great way to say it, because I think with the last name Manning, so many people are so ready to jump on the bandwagon and say he's the next this, he's the next that. And it's almost like, no, it should be prove to me you can play this at a high level before we coordinate. Like you're not saying something down on the guy. You're like, I want to see a first-year starting quarterback in the toughest conference in America maybe show a little bit more before I go ahead and crown him as the number 1 overall draft pick in next year's draft.